I can't lose another child. The words escaped 35-year-old Hannah Collins in a broken whisper while doctors rushed around the hospital room in panic. Rain hammered violently against the windows outside as machines beeped beside her bed. Across the room, her husband Daniel stood frozen with fear in his eyes. And in that terrifying moment, Hannah realized something heartbreaking. Life was asking her to become a mother again, after already surviving the pain of losing one. But the cruelest part was this. She was not sure her heart could survive another goodbye. 5 years earlier, Hannah's life had looked completely different. Their small home had once been filled with laughter, toys scattered across the floor, and the sound of tiny footsteps running through the hallway every morning. At the center of that happiness was 4-year-old Ellie Collins, bright eyes, messy curls, and a laugh so joyful it could make even terrible days feel lighter. Ellie loved drawing butterflies on walls, sneaking cookies before dinner, and forcing her father into silly tea parties every weekend. Hannah often joked about being exhausted, but secretly she loved every chaotic moment because Ellie made their house feel alive, and maybe that was why losing her felt like losing life itself. It started like an ordinary fever, nothing serious at first. Ellie complained about feeling cold and tired after preschool, so Hannah wrapped her in blankets while Daniel picked up medicine from the pharmacy. But by midnight, Ellie struggled breathing. Everything after that became a blur of sirens, hospital lights, and terrified prayers whispered through tears. Doctors fought desperately to save her from a sudden severe infection. But sometimes love is not enough to stop tragedy. At 3:17 in the morning, Hannah heard the sentence that destroyed her world forever. "We're sorry. We did everything we could." And just like that, the future she imagined disappeared overnight. Some pain changes people permanently. After Ellie's death, Hannah stopped recognizing herself completely. The cheerful woman who once sang while cooking disappeared. Silence replaced laughter inside their home. Ellie's toys remained untouched for months because Hannah could not bear moving them. Tiny shoes still waited beside the front door long after winter ended. Even the walls felt emptier somehow. Daniel grieved too, but differently. He tried returning to work, tried staying strong, and tried pretending life could continue normally. But Hannah became emotionally trapped inside the moment she lost her daughter. And slowly, grief began destroying their marriage too. 2 years later, Daniel quietly asked something one evening Hannah never expected. "Have you ever thought about trying again?" Hannah froze instantly. The question felt almost cruel. Another child? How could anyone even think about replacing Ellie? "No child will ever replace her," Hannah shouted before breaking down crying. Daniel looked heartbroken immediately. "I know that," he whispered softly. "I miss her too." But Hannah could not hear anything beyond guilt, because deep inside she feared something terrifying. What if becoming a mother again meant letting go of the daughter she already lost? Months passed after that conversation. Their relationship became colder. Some nights Hannah secretly heard Daniel crying alone in the bathroom. Other nights he slept on the couch because grief had built invisible walls between them. Then one rainy afternoon, Hannah visited Ellie's grave alone. For hours she sat silently beside the small white stone while cold wind moved through the cemetery trees. She kept staring at Ellie's name carved into the marble, almost hoping somehow her daughter would answer back. Eventually, an elderly woman nearby spoke gently. "Loving another child doesn't mean loving the one you lost any less." Hannah looked at her silently. The woman smiled sadly. "A mother's heart grows," she whispered. "It doesn't replace." Those words followed Hannah home like a quiet voice she could not escape. And for the first time in years, something inside her began softening. A year later, Hannah discovered she was pregnant. The positive test trembled violently in her hands while fear consumed her instead of happiness. Daniel cried immediately when she told him, but Hannah could not celebrate because every joyful feeling carried terror beside it. She checked the baby's heartbeat constantly, panicked whenever something felt wrong, and woke from nightmares imagining another hospital room, another goodbye. Trauma has a cruel way of stealing happiness even from beautiful moments. And the closer the pregnancy moved toward birth, the more Hannah feared history repeating itself. One evening, while folding tiny baby clothes, Hannah suddenly collapsed emotionally. "I'm scared Ellie will think I forgot her," she whispered through tears. Daniel immediately held her tightly. "She would never think that," he said softly. But Hannah's guilt remained, heavy because grieving mothers often feel like loving life. again somehow betrays the children they lost. For years, sadness had become part of her identity, and now happiness felt almost unfamiliar. Then came the stormy night everything changed. At 8 months pregnant, Hannah suddenly collapsed at home from severe complications. Daniel rushed her to the hospital, while rain poured violently across dark streets outside. Doctors moved quickly, voices blurred together, machines beeped loudly around her, and suddenly Hannah found herself back inside the exact kind of terrifying room where she once lost Ellie. Panic consumed her instantly. "I can't do this again," she sobbed weakly. Daniel held her hand desperately while doctors prepared emergency surgery. Then came silence, long terrifying silence, until finally a baby cried, small, weak, but alive. And in that moment, Hannah broke down completely, not from fear this time, from relief. Tears poured down Hannah's face as nurses carefully placed a tiny baby girl into her trembling arms. Dark hair, tiny fingers, warm breathing, real, alive. For several seconds, Hannah could only stare silently because after years of grief and fear, happiness almost felt unreal. Daniel cried beside her openly. "She's beautiful," he whispered. Hannah slowly kissed the baby's forehead while tears continued falling. Then she whispered softly, "Welcome home, Lily." The following months were not magically perfect. Hannah still carried grief for Ellie. Some nights she cried quietly while holding Lily because motherhood reminded her painfully of what she once lost. But slowly, something unexpected happened. Love returned to their home again. Not the same love as before, different, softer sadness. And joy learning how to exist together. Lily's laughter slowly filled empty rooms that grief once silenced completely. And for the first time in years, Hannah began smiling naturally again. Then one evening, when Lily was nearly 3 years old, she wandered curiously into Ellie's old bedroom. Hannah followed nervously behind her. The room had remained untouched for years. Dust-covered shelves, while old toys waited silently in corners. Lily picked up one of Ellie's stuffed animals carefully before looking at Hannah. "Who did this belong to?" she asked innocently. For a moment, Hannah felt tears rise instantly. Then she smiled softly. "Your big sister." Lily hugged the stuffed animal tightly, and somehow, instead of pain, warmth filled Hannah's chest. Because finally, she understood something important. Becoming a mother again did not erase the child she lost. Her heart had simply made room for both love and grief together. Years later, during a support group for grieving parents, Hannah shared her story quietly before saying something that left the room completely silent. "After losing my daughter, I thought my life as a mother ended forever," she whispered. "But I learned something important." Tears filled her eyes softly. Broken hearts can still love again. And sitting quietly in the front row beside Daniel and Lily, Hannah realized something beautiful. She was not replacing the past. She was surviving it. And sometimes survival itself becomes the beginning of hope again. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional stories about love, loss, family, and hope. And remember, even the most broken hearts can learn to love again.